Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the GEEX Flame Affinity Group meeting. And tonight's topic is building bridges.
Awesome.
GEEX is a nonprofit online educational platform that produces lectures, community building programs, and resources for professional development. We hope to redefine glass culture by centering voices that have been historically marginalized in the field. GEEX's primary program is GEEX Talks, and this season's slate will feature Kayla Cantu, Ani Liu, Chris Rumman, Dima Sroji, Josefina Hunas Torres, and Project Fire. And we dropped a link in the chat so you can follow along with the programming. This fall, speakers' GEEX Talks are now out, along with GEEX Shorts, a new format for the Glassy on the go. So here's a little preview of some of the content here. Okay. The Writing Center is also open now. The Writing Center is a judgment-free space for translating visual artwork into language and writing. Please come as you are and use these one-on-one consultations on starting a new writing project or improving your existing writing. Check out Lydia's listening sessions, consults that open up a space to vent your writing into existence. 40-minute appointments on a sliding scale basis. That's a great deal. So the appointments are open now through December 15th, and it is application season, so take advantage of those. We have 3 light housekeeping points. A reminder that everyone in this space should have read and agreed to the GEEX Code of Conduct, and we'll put a refresher of these guidelines in the chat thread. Secondly, if you're new to Google Meet, you'll want to familiarize yourself with the standard controls at the center bottom of your screen to mute and unmute, turn your video on and off, use the hand raise function, and disconnect from the call. And on the bottom right is where you can access the chat function and some other tools that we probably won't use this time around. Lastly, if you prefer the Zoom style gallery view to see everyone in this call, you can click the 3-dot pop-up menu. And in that pop-up menu, select Change Layout, which will open up a menu of options so you can adjust to your desired settings. For a Zoom gallery comparable experience, you can select Tiled and then adjust the slider to however many faces you want to see at once. Tonight's meeting and past Flame Affinity meetings are archived through the GEEX Resource Exchange for those who couldn't make it, as well as for future utility. By joining us tonight, please know that your contributions to the discussion will be recorded and publicly shared. Huge thank you to our sponsors for this meeting, High Volume Oxygen, and we have an anonymous donor as well. HVO High Volume Oxygen is proud to sponsor this meeting of the Flame Affinity Group. Are you ready to be oxygen independent? The HVO system is built by glassblowers for glassblowers. High Volume Oxygen has oxygen solutions for flameworking studios of all sizes and is in studios and institutions around the world. Why choose HVO over other systems? Expandability, reliability, and safety. Join the oxygen revolution. Find out more at highvolumeoxygen.com. And we'll post that in the chat for you. And I just want to say, I use High Volume Oxygen in my studio, and also UrbanGlass, where Ghislaine works. We also use high volume oxygen there. It's really great alternative to lugging tanks around, or if you live in a place where, like an urban center, where it's really not feasible to have tanked oxygen to flame work. High Volume Oxygen really is a great company to work with, and I really can't recommend him anymore. So at the end of this meeting, you'll be encouraged to give us some feedback. So here's a link in advance if you're so inclined. And your feedback really helps us plan the next season, plan the next meetings. And if you have anything that you want to tell us or suggest, we're really open to hearing your feedback. So we just wanted to open up the opportunity for you all to communicate with us. To keep programs like the Flame Affinity Group accessible to the broader community, there are a number of ways you can support GEEX. Buying merch through the GEEX shop, like our Better Together bandana, the Vanessa German generative poster, or centering dimensional wholeness, or our collection of glassy mugs made in collaboration with Dr. Jane Cook. You can support GEEX by subscribing or renewing your individual or school's GEEX Talk subscription, nominating GEEX for a Glassy Baby Grant, or setting up an independent fundraiser on Facebook or Instagram. And a lot of people do this for their birthdays, just a little suggestion. Contributions of any size help, and thank you for your ongoing support. You should know you can always email the GEEX to indicate fund that you want to earmark specifically to support the Flame Affinity Group. So if you would like to make a donation to support this group, just send a note in with your donation to help support our group so that we can keep the programming coming for y'all. Venmo is also easy and available. And here's a QR code and a link to the GEEX Venmo account. Thanks for joining us today. If you would like to stay updated on programs and check out GEEX resources, bookmark the GEEX website and sign up for the GEEX newsletter. We have links to recordings in the resource exchange through the GEEX website. And here are just some screenshots of some of the previous meetings that we've held. And these are all available with videos, meeting notes, and some also contain resources that we have worked on and co-created as a group and then compiled after the meeting and released through the resource exchange. So there's a ton of information here. When you have some time, I would really encourage you to check it out. Okay, so our agenda tonight, we have a special guest, Ghislaine Sabiti, who is the director of the Bead Project and many other positions, but she's also the participant of the NIFA Incubator for Executive Leaders of Color and an immigrant art consultant for the New York Foundation for the Arts. So I will tell you a little bit more about her in a minute. Our discussion tonight, our topic is called Building Bridges. And so we can interpret that in a lot of different ways. So tonight we're going to bring Ghislaine into the discussion so she can teach us and share with us some of the ways that she builds bridges in her community and some of the work that she's doing in New York and beyond as well. Okay. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody. Appreciate you coming. Okay, so I would like to just give you a little background info and we'll introduce Ghislaine. Ghislaine Sabiti is a French-American Congolese-born multidisciplinary artist, painter, glass artist, ceramic sculptor, costume designer, educator, and Bead Project director at UrbanGlass. She grew up in the outskirts of Paris, France, and is now based in New York. Sabiti studied fine arts at Atelier Chantier de Coq and l'Académie de la Grande Chaumière, and graduated with honors in fashion design from Atelier Chardon Savant in Paris, France. She further developed her skills by studying glass lamp working, glass blowing, and photo decal application at UrbanGlass and ceramics at Art Shack in New York. She has taught and created curriculum at several premier institutions, including the Harlem School of the Arts, Peters Valley, UrbanGlass, Zimmerli Art Museum, French Institute, Brooklyn College, and Glassroots. Sabiti's work highlights the technical form used in both African and European arts, focusing on form and color. She specializes in creating unique sculptural pieces that blend various techniques such as weaving, braiding, oil painting, ceramic sculpture, and glass sculpture. So we did just drop in a couple of links to Ghislaine. I'm not going to read all of her credentials because there are so many, but I do just want to do a few highlights. She has completed several prestigious fellowships, including the New York Foundation for the Art Incubator for Executive Leaders of Color, Caribbean Cultural Center, African Diaspora Institute's Innovative Cultural Advocacy Fellowship, and many, many more. She's been doing a lot of residencies lately, and then she has been a resident artist at Peters Valley, Columbia Clay, Art Yard, Hillchuck Better Together, UrbanGlass, Glassroots, Calabar, Jamaica Center. There's a lot. She's been doing a lot of residencies, and also showing her artwork, solo shows, group shows at major institutions. She's been in the Whitney Biennial, y'all. So, you know, with Occupy, which one was it? Occupy Museum Debt Fair at the Whitney Biennial. So she's an incredible artist and an incredible person. And we're so glad that you could join us tonight, Ghislaine.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So as our special guest tonight, Ghislaine is open to speak at any point. So I should also introduce at this point myself. I'm Amy Lemaire, and my co-facilitator, Madeline Rile Smith. Give a wave, yes. And we will be directing traffic tonight. There are a few ways that you can participate. I will be kind of stoking the discussion with some discussion prompts. If you would like to speak, you can use the hand raise function on the bottom of your screen, and Madeline or I will call on you, and just so that we're not all talking over each other. And then you can also work the chat at any point too, and we'll be keeping an eye on the chat. So if you want to ask questions or add comments or speak with each other, you can work the chat. So, and then Ghislaine can answer questions, ask questions. So we really are looking to make kind of a lateral discussion tonight, where we can talk about building bridges in the community and how to do that in a better, more inclusive way. So I hope that you're all ready for that. Yes. Okay. Hi, Sam. Good to see you. So I thought, since, we're getting to know Ghislaine, I thought that to start off, it might be interesting to ask a question directly to Ghislaine, so that she can kind of tell us a little bit about herself. So Ghislaine, how have your experiences growing up in Congo and Paris and ultimately moving to New York influenced your approach to bridging cultural gaps in the arts?
So I try to, living in 3 different continents, I try to embrace the 3 different culture in my art practice, and also as the art educator, how can I transmit all these 3 culture together and embracing them? And sometimes there is like a duality in between, but it have to be natural, and also taking what I learned in the past and bringing that to the present. So like the space, the location, and also my interaction with the new people I'm around here in New York City. So learning, understanding all of these 3 cultures are different, but also they are very important, and how I can embrace and use it in my daily life. Each of them have something very special and important as I learn through my art practice, and also as an artist. So it's very important for me to use it as a tool and be proud of that. And how also can I share with everybody?
Excellent. I love how you really embrace this multicultural aspect of your background, and what was the word you used before? A hybrid identity?
Yes.
Yeah, hybrid. Yeah, where you just let all of the parts of you shine. And I just think that's a really beautiful approach.
Thank you. It's a powerful tool.
So, Ghislaine, you are the director of the Bead Project, and you teach in New York at UrbanGlass, and you teach flameworking and business practices, right, for jewelry making?
Yes.
In your classes, do you have people from lots of different backgrounds?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about the students that you work with?
So I'm working with students who have like different level of background and knowledge regarding glass making, business skills. So as a art educator and also a mentor, I try to understand where they're coming from. And also I have a curriculum, but the curriculum I try to always make sure like the curriculum match with the level of each of my students. So adaptation of the curriculum, understanding the need of each of the students are very different. So being a good listener is very important with a good exercise. And sometimes as a art educator, you have to understand like I've been a student before. So understanding the feeling and what they want to learn. And sometimes it could be a little bit overwhelming. So you need to know how to navigate in between these two different layers of the knowledge and learning process.
Do you feel like when you're teaching, you're also learning from your students as well?
Every day, every time. You know, life is a learning process. You never finish to learn. So even if you think you know, you never know everything. So I think like everybody have something to give in life and also in the classroom. The classroom is the best way for everybody to grow, even the teacher and the student. So it's a exchanging knowledge. So it's important the teacher have the knowledge and the skill, but be able to exchange and share it to each of the student, and the student can bring also the background and different type of their like experience in life. So it's very great. The classroom, I think, is the best space to know that.
Agreed. How do you have any strategies or any like how do you help experienced makers embrace the courage to be a beginner again? Like if they're coming from another medium and then trying glass for the first time, that can be really humbling, especially if you're used to being a master in some other discipline. How do you navigate that terrain?
For me, like they always told them, like, please have fun and experimentation. So when you have this mindset of experimenting, you give a room for failure. Is good for you because you're not like being very perfectionist. Being too perfectionist is it doesn't going to allow you to excel and be more open on exploring new technique, new skill, new size, and fail. So experimentation is the key for me, and having fun. Don't stress, because if you're overthinking and stress, you cannot achieve anything.
Totally, keeping it fun. Does anybody else have any other experiences with teaching groups of like diverse populations in at the same time, or people from different experience levels all in the same classroom or in the same workshop, and have any strategies or experiences that you might want to share about any of that? I'm looking at you, Sally. I can't hear you because you're muted. Do you want to say something?
Yes. I often have people from all over the world and at UMass Amherst in my classes, and they're all scientists and sometimes MFA students thrown all together. And what we like to do is write things on the board, different words in different languages, and Okay, let's make chopsticks. How do we write chopsticks? What are we going to eat with the chopsticks? And then learn a little bit about, Chinese and different languages. So it's kind of fun. And it's always fun I think, to have, scientists with MFA students. They really, they have the same mind, they're trying to reach to something unknown, and they really try to mix, things together. And by the end of the semester, they're all having a great time. Yeah. So that's my experience.
Well, I'd like to share something. One of the things that I learned about being a teacher is that making room for the students to teach you something is really helpful. Like, it's like knowledge is a transaction. So sometimes in order for the students to understand what you're trying to teach them, then they also want to reciprocate that. So whether that's, like Sally said, teaching, maybe new words from that you don't know from their language, or sharing, like I've had a lot of students share food or beads from other cultures, which is great. So yeah, I think making space for an exchange to happen helps everybody feel comfortable. And then also, like, we can teach each other as well as just having it be like the teacher teaches the student. It's not the only activity that's happening in the teaching space. Madeline.
Yeah, I just think it takes so much like courage to become a beginner again. When you're, people who are, even like if you're a master glass blower and you're like, I'm going to learn flame working.
Yeah.
Or if you're just like a master at something else and you're like, I'm going to do something that's so hard and struggle. I mean, I think that's hard for anyone to start, but I think it's just so admirable. So I like to kind of create space for that. And one little practical thing I do is I always like to have, like, if I'm teaching a workshop or a class, have students, like, if they'd use another media or something, like show images of their work. So like we can all sort of see what everyone brings to the table if they want to. So it's a voluntary thing. Cause I'm often surprised, with what I find.
Ghislaine.
Yes, I will say also, adding to Madeline point, be humble is a key to start something new and be a beginner. Humble yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I started flame working, I was studying painting and felt very comfortable with a lot of like more traditional art forms like painting and drawing, photography, even like woodworking and metalworking and stuff. But the glass, that took a long time. It's very humbling. It still is for a long time. And that was a difficult thing to makes your self-esteem go down sometimes, it can. So I think figuring out a way to import those other skills that you have into the glass blowing was what really helped me. So it made me think, oh, I'm not actually a total beginner. I might be a beginner with this material, but I'm not starting out at making. I can take what I know about soldering and apply that to attaching glass together, or I can take what I know about color theory and I can import that into design language. So even though I was a beginner at one material, I actually had a lot of knowledge accumulated that could be used. So when I teach beginners who are new to the material, I like to remind them of those things and try to find the knowledge so that they feel a little more confident when they're approaching something new. All right, let's see. So yes, applying what you know from working with other media and field of flame working helps you remember that you're not completely starting from nothing. No, we're not. even just life experience helps. Like with flame working, especially because you have to be kind of tough and you have to be kind of stubborn to work the glass. If you're gonna give up right away, it might not be a material for you. You got to stick with it. Yes, Sally.
Monday wants to say something.
Oh, yeah, Monday.
I'm thinking about connecting. The way I learned, no one taught me. I just saw it when I was a little kid and started playing around for 50 years. So the connecting of the heart, the mind, the eyes, the hands, and the material. and be willing to be led by the material and just chase and chase and chase your curiosity through glass, metal, chainsaw, welding, smashing things, whatever you want to do. But that connection that you finally discover that you've successfully communicated through the material, it's always a shock when I just have a lovely time and I'm blowing things and making mistakes and throwing them aside. And then I go away and I discover and I think, oh, this one's not so bad. Then I pump it and I throw that aside and think, oh my God, I don't want to finish. How can I finish it? It's so impractical. And then finally one day somebody comes along and says, oh, look, and I tie a string around it, hang it from the ceiling, and they go, oh, it's art. I'm like, well, where'd that come from? Cool. Okay. That'll be fine. Goodbye.
Sam. Hi, Sam. You can unmute yourself. Hi.
Hello. Yeah, so I mean, just listening to what everybody's saying, it seems like it just was resonating with me a lot. This idea of like translating between media and especially within the glass realm. There's so many ways to work with glass. There's so many studios, if you will, to find out and how we work with it. But I find that even in like intro, make your own level versus like advanced kind of exchange, there's this use of metaphor because glass seems very abstract. So this like kind of using other things to explain what is happening or to kind of commune with that and like try and get that unified understanding in that moment. I feel like I've definitely used and relied on that kind of metaphor aspect of this. And I know like coming from flameworking and then moving into the hot shop, I didn't understand flame annealing until I started blowing soft glass. And I know like the glory hole and annealing flame are very different, but there's enough similarity that things started to click and then it worked. But, yeah.
Absolutely, Sam. And also like, it makes me think like I've explained, actually in the Bead Project, I've explained how the viscosity of glass in terms of like sugar, right? Because I had a student who was a candy maker and who understood the viscosity of sugar and chocolate. And when you explained it like that, she was like, oh, no problem. I know how to do that. So you always try to find the common bridge too. And, you know, whatever you got to do to express the point. Yeah. So Ghislaine, do you ever, or anybody in the group, use collaboration as a way to kind of like help people from different backgrounds or with different levels of ability be successful in the studio and learn that way? Sally, did you want to tap in?
Well, one thing, Jake Fishman, when I teach with him, one project we do, it's called The Space Between Us. And we put down a piece of paper on the floor and everybody lays down and we outline people. And they're all kind of connected. And then we take just the spaces between the people and we make neon lights with that. And that's what we hang up. And, you know, because really it's not about glass. It's not about teaching. It's just this space between us and the trust between us and the exchange between us.
That's pretty beautiful. Just like,
I would say for me, it's always building a bridge between community and also even in my classroom, I will build a bridge by always bringing mentors, bringing speaker. Anybody could help the student to learn and understand in the different way. I feel like as an instructor, there is many ways to teach, and sometimes one way is not the good way or the best way, or you need to add more to help to have a better result. So building a bridge is to bring partnership, mentor, volunteer. Anybody can put something and bring a knowledge, bring a skill to the classroom and to the student. It's one of my is one of the key when I teach, and also what I always is my vision in everything. So yes.
And when you're bringing in guests, you're also connecting your students with people in the community as well, and extending the network beyond the classroom.
Sure, definitely. You're right, Amy, because this is an extension, this building a bridge. So it's going to be outside the classroom. In the long term, it could be a collaboration in the future for an exhibition, a job opportunity. You never know. So it's a good connection.
Yeah. Excellent. And like Sally's students too, it sounds like those relationships that happen in the classroom can be maybe extended outside as well too, having people from the sciences and the arts all together as pretty great. Yep, Sally, want to speak on that?
Well, you can bring glass to everything, right? I mean,
It's true. Yeah.
This Wednesday, I have somebody from ancient history coming into the glass shop, and we're going to talk about ancient glass, and how glass traveled throughout the world in ancient times. So you can really connect everything to everything. It's just not just glass materials, but ceramics, metal, all that stuff. It's all connected. It really is, so you can connect it to other subjects matters.
Glass is a material. You can also just connect it to like living in the world, or at least in the United States, right? I challenge my students usually on the first day of class, say, when you go home, pay attention to how many things in your life are made out of glass. You're driving a car, there's glass there. You're looking out a window, there's glass. You have glasses on your face, you have glass on your camera lens, and just make a list. See how many things you can see around you in everyday life that are glass. And that really changes perspective. Yeah, Sally.
So probably a lot of you know that I was trained by Lloyd Moore. And in the 70s in the Midwest, it was very hard to be a young white woman with an older Black gentleman going out and doing craft shows. But glass made people more accessible. Instead of talking about the Black-white issue, which came up all the time, but we had this glass in the middle of us that we could talk about. And by the end of the day, we were all talking. At the beginning of the day, maybe nobody would come up and talk to us, but by the end of the day, we had this exchange. So having a material to talk about in between cultural differences is good.
There is something just really primary about being with fire too, and that power, being able to manipulate something in the flame. It's not something that people get to do regularly, so it's kind of special. And I think sharing that experience, definitely. There's a lot of students in the classes that I've taught that have become friends and stayed friends, but through bonding over that experience, and even continue to blow glass together, keep it going. Definitely something special about working glass as a material. Ghislaine, you are a practicing artist and also an arts administrator now. So how do you see the role of mentorship in bridging the gap between seasoned artists and newcomers? And what role has mentorship played in your artistic development?
Like mentorship, I think being an artist is one of the key, because you need advisor, you need somebody who can guide you and tell you the truth, and not just say everything is fine. You have to be very present and also very true, so it can guide you and align you where you're supposed to be, without giving you all the answers. Being a mentor is not giving all the answer, because you have to learn, but it's to guide you and helping you to find the way and the tool and the knowledge, the skills and the connection, all of that. and also I feel like I used to be a mentee. and a mentor. So doing both helped me to recognize and understand the needs of what an artist are looking for, and also the response, because sometimes you don't have the response you're looking for, and you may ask a different person, it doesn't feel right for you. So follow your intuition and your instinct, and being a good listener is the key for a mentee, and also as a mentor, because you have to listen the need of the person is in front of you and asking for help or guidance.
Mm-hmm. When you first came to New York, how did you make that cultural shift? Did you have mentors who right from the beginning in New York, or is that something that happened later on for you?
So for me, it was building a connection, building a community. Community is one of the key for me as an artist. So my work is focused on community, and also is my everyday life philosophy. You need communities, you need each other. So I was looking for different community. It wasn't just in glass community, it was on fine art, painting, ceramic, and also social justice. It doesn't have to be only in art, like different field. I feel that I'm connected, and I use all this community to build a network, to build a presence, and having this exchange. Because when you are a part of the community, it's not just taking from the community, you have to give back. So be able to give back. And without, it could be volunteering, it could be working as a member, not working, but just giving back. It helps. And knowing like you are somebody and you come from somewhere. So don't erase your past, don't erase your culture. Try to embrace the new culture with your roots. And as you said, at the beginnings is hybrid, like these two cultures. It's very important.
I love that. I love that. And working with a mentor, if you're just starting out, is a great way to learn from, like you said, learn from somebody who has been in that position before. And it's a way to transfer knowledge from somebody who has a lot of experience to somebody who's just starting out. So there's professional development programs where you can connect with a mentor. You're involved in a number of those, right, Ghislaine? As a
Yes.
The new position is immigrant artist consultant.
Yes.
Through NIFA.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's great. So now you're in a position where you can share your knowledge with people who are just starting their journey.
Yes. And sometimes some people are just come from like a few months ago, a few weeks ago. Some people been living here for many years. And I always think about myself as an immigrant artist living in 3 different continents, and also embracing my culture, my different culture. How can it help me to understand? Because as a consultant and also as the mentor, you have to understand and listen to the need of the person is in front of you. So it's very important. And also using your experience and your knowledge is one of the key, but like 100% understanding and listening what they want and guide them in the good direction. I always remember when I come and the struggle I went through. So I'm trying to help them not making the same mistake I did in the past. It helps also if you can. It's a good way to, build a bridge.
Yeah. It's probably helpful as well that you're bilingual. So, you could run the mentorship meetings in French or in English and build a bridge there as well, culturally.
He opened a big range of community, and it's very helpful to be able to touch people from all over the world, because most of the people speak French and English in different continents, so it's not just here in US. So some of the artists can be anywhere in the world and speaking even French and English and get the session. So this is amazing. It's global and international and local at the meantime.
Well, New York City is it's international and local, so you're in the right spot for that. Yeah, that's so exciting. And you went through that program as well. Did you have that's where you had a mentor, and now you've become a mentor?
Yes. Yeah, I did a mentorship. Yeah. Oops. It's okay. I'm in my studio.
Oh, you're muted. There you go.
I'm in my studio. So it's the wall.
Work in progress.
Yeah. Studio. And what I was saying, I did a few mentorship in NIFA and the African Caribbean Institute, and through that, I was a mentor and a mentee. So, yes.
Excellent. And now you are mentoring artists full circle. That's great. Congratulations on the new position. That's excellent.
Thank you. It's a blessing.
All right. Sally.
Lloyd and I still get together. He's really old. He's got a little dementia now, but he's still a mentor to me. I'm still learning from him, and it's not just glass that I'm learning, but it's wonderful to have that mentor relationship.
The best mentors that I've had are never just teaching you about glass or art. They're always teaching you about life, and they show up right when you need them. So, bless the mentors. It's excellent to have them around. And yeah, I'm now at this point going to switch over. We're about midway through our session tonight, and so Madeline, I'm going to tap Madeline in, and she's going to take over for facilitator.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. And great to see everyone. Thanks for coming. Yeah, loving the discussion so far. So I want to just continue what we're talking about. We were talking a lot about sort of building a bridge. That's the theme of the meeting. So building a bridge between students and professionals. And, as the community is growing, we don't want the younger generation to feel cut off. We want knowledge to travel in both directions. So both sort of different generations feel free to approach one another and ask one another questions, because truly all voices are valuable. And, sometimes you have the top-down approach to teaching, and sometimes it's more, it's more omnidirectional. So one question that I had for Ghislaine, and then also for anyone else who wants to answer, is these challenges where sometimes it's the top-down approach. There might be some hierarchy. Do they exist outside of traditional learning spaces? And how do we address them? Sort of building bridges between levels of experience. Gabriella.
Hi, everyone. I didn't mean to hop in front, but thank you so much for having me and having this discussion. This is my first time. I am very new to flameworking. I started in the spring, and I have under 100 hours on the torch, I would say. So I'm just really excited to be able to join the community, and I will say it's really exciting that this is mostly women. I love you, Joe and Joe. But yeah, I think it's been interesting to experience flameworking from just my perspective. I'm living in Reno. There are no formal education centers really. There is someone actually who does soft glass, but I'm working in Boro. And so I've just started working with a couple of artists in their space. So it's very informal. And the mentorship, although like I appreciate it, it's like, you know, an older guy, a guy who's been doing it forever. And there's another male student that he has that like he teaches so much more. Like he gives him free glass. They have very similar, styles. They're very into the same stuff. Whereas I'm coming in wanting to make like cute pink things and like, just looking at a different side of glass. And so it's interesting to be like, okay, in this space where maybe they're not interested in the same design or purpose of the glass than I am, but like we still have the same passion. So regardless of the discomfort there, it is cool no matter what to be able to talk to this person and be like, glass is so freaking cool. And he's like, isn't it? And like, most other people. So like we can connect over the glass. So we might not agree on like some other things, right? In life. And like you said, like mentors teach you about life and maybe what I don't want in life, right? Like maybe this is not what I want for the glass scene going forward. I want people to feel more welcomed. So I just think like even having, discussions like this where you're able to meet people from places that like I would have never gotten to even know you guys, right? I mean, I do follow Maddie, but I have for a long time. And I remember like first seeing your work years ago, which is crazy. And now I'm like, OMG, like, what is this full circle moment,
Aw.
So big love, but it's really cool to be able to join y'all and just like I said, learn and maybe have mentorship from other people. Like even just this discussion, right? Like is so much learning going on from other environments because although glass is so unifying, like it is very isolating in that it's not accessible. And a lot of people, especially with flameworking, will work out of their garage or some random warehouse. And unless you're, in a place where there's like UrbanGlass or something like that, or like, Seattle or whatever, there's a bunch of cool places that have huge shops. But I think this level of interaction is really important just as much as being in like a formal classroom setting, because most people don't have that opportunity a lot of the time. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Gabriella. That it's so awesome to have your perspective and like, being a new flame worker with under 100 hours on the torch. And yet, like we said, all voices are valuable. It's like so great to be able to hear, from someone just starting out, your perspective versus someone who's been in the field for decades and decades, like, like Sally or other people who joined this meeting. So it's amazing. And thanks for, I'm so excited to have you as your first meeting. Hopefully you come to many more. And that's something that I feel like is really exciting about these affinity groups is that we all kind of come together and it's really awesome. I remember when I was starting out, I was so intimidated by like all the people who were my heroes, like I would go to like the gas conference or the flameworking conference and I'd see someone who I admired like across the room. I'd be like, oh my God, like I have to run away from them because like they don't want to, I'm so shy. Right. And then, I will go to the flameworking conference this year and like I see all the current students doing that still. And they're all like, oh, they're so-and-so, they're so cool. And like, the people who are, very seasoned, like I think they're just as happy most of the time, like to have interactions and meet with the new people. But that's sort of one like idea is like just bridging the gap and like because I think that both have a lot to learn from one another, in every sense of the world. So I just think that's really cool. Yeah, does anyone else have anything they want to share about that, bridging the gap between different generations? Do these challenges exist outside of traditional learning spaces? Joe?
Yeah, I'm listening to all this, and it's like I've experienced some of the community and feel good stuff, but I guess I'm gonna be a little bit cynical here and say that I've run into forces that aren't so great. I mean, I started out in flame working too, and I was really into it, and I was really getting interested in like glass chemistry and color chemistry. And I remember just completely getting shut down. Like nobody wanted to at least nobody that I wanted to talk to this stuff or was able to talk to it would really give me any information. And a part of why I got into ceramics, in addition to glass, was to try and reverse engineer glass chemistry. And there's still a lot of weird secret keeping. There's a lot of cliques. There are groups that kind of feel like, oh, this is the way to do glass, or this is the way to do a certain type of glass. And if you don't really follow along, or if you don't really agree with, even if it's like, oh, I have nothing against how you're doing it, but it's just not for me, you kind of get shut down a lot. And I found that a lot of what interests me doesn't really fit well with a lot of the established systems and hierarchies. Like, I started out in a craft center. I worked up. I took craft classes. I eventually got into an academic program. I got an MFA, and a lot of my experience has been people kind of looking at me weird and saying, like, you're not really doing it, quote unquote, right. And that kind of gets me cut off from a lot of things. And so, I mean, it's great. I do believe in like mentorship. I think that works well if you can find a mentor that works well with you. But there's also this sense of looking to something that's already established, kind of, in a way, at least for me, shuts off some potential doors to other avenues. And a lot of what I run into is I'm trying to do something and I find it really exciting and I find it really compelling. And whenever I talk to some people who are established, they look at it and say, "What are you doing? This isn't like they don't agree with it." And in odd cases, people find it threatening for some odd reasoning. And I don't know, like, I'm still trying to figure this stuff out, but I mean, I think it's relevant to this discussion.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, Joe. I think that's a really important point. And I think that's something I've experienced, and probably most people here, or a lot of people have experienced. And, I'm curious, is it like an institution by institution thing? Is it like a click by click thing? Because I've definitely been in some places where I felt much more like afraid to sort of stand out, go against the grain. And then other places where it feels like much more open. But yeah, it's I think that's the reason why we want to have this discussion, because every voice is valuable, even if it's like brand new. And like Amy just said, it's difficult to be a trailblazer. I'll go to you, Sam.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, mentorship, I feel like there's a lot of different paths with it. I come from the flameworking world as well. I was still am a pipe maker. And it was how I came into the industry, and it was more garages in the forest and less big box kind of access. And I kind of think of, when I look back on everything, I may have taken on a potential like multi-mentor kind of system instead of having full investment in one, because it wasn't an institution that I went to. I had to kind of not burden so much. The first studio that I went into, I started making stuff, but then it infringed on it was a small town, so there was only so many places to sell. The internet hadn't blown up yet. And so then I had to find a new way. I had to take what they had given me and make something new out of it. And if I hadn't done that, it would have become a bitter relationship instead of a forthcoming relationship. At least there was I remember a moment of that, of like, okay, no, now my presence is now hurting these people, versus like, and they want to share, but then there's this like tension. So it wasn't until like learning, okay, no, I need to just like broaden where I'm asking that question, where I need to find more resources. I need to experiment. where I found mentorship started as kind of like the seed of research. And just like any good research, I needed to diversify. And being bold, like I know there's a lot of walls up, and I got very lucky in a lot of cases. I still don't understand why half of these people talk to me, but I learned so much from collaboration, and that collaboration was this young buck being like, "Hey, you want to? Let's talk glass. I want to talk glass. I want to get you jazzed about glass because I'm jazzed about it, and you seem like, based on what I'm seeing in your work, you're jazzed about it. So like, let's be jazzed about it." And then those conversations evolved into more. I had one of my soft glass mentors' wives tell me that he was kind of burnt out on glass. And about a year into his mentorship of me, she told me he got reinvigorated with my presence. And I really feel like as the student, there's a role to play there. People that have been in it for a long time, there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of burden that comes on with that elongated process. As I go further, I feel it. As much as I am still excited, there's still that like, whoa, now I know so much. Now, how do we navigate all this? Where a newcomer can really like bring that new energy to it. And I think that mentorship, as much as it helps the student, it really can also help the mentor. And that relationship definitely evolves and can make both find new facets of the material that they may not have found before. And it's that kind of like shameless interest, I feel like, has been a unifying thing. Because I've had people that I've learned from that barely spoke English. I was lucky enough to have artists from Japan come into the studio I was working in. And one of them thought it would be cool enough to collaborate with me too. And we communicated on glass. He had a few English words and I could point to drawings. And we made something together, and we both, I think, learned, or at least I know I learned a lot from that experience. But that shameless interest was still present there, as it was with many other mentors, young, old, different medias of glass, and that willingness to try, right? And that willingness to show up. Because a mentor, they've got their, I mean, as a somebody who's looking up at a mentor, they've got their shit together. They're doing something that makes me interested. And so that willingness to be like, hey, yeah, no, I'll assist if we're talking through this and you want to try it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's do this. There's that energy. And I know that energy is not like something that is so forthcoming to everybody. I know I have an energy that kind of does that. I'm willing to like get in your face about things. But I do think that there's that like bridging the gap, because as I kind of gain a little bit of experience, and I've only a few times, but I've had people be like, I follow you and I had this question and we talked about it, and it's nervous for me. I wouldn't have known that person wanted to have a conversation with me. So don't be afraid to be shamelessly interested in glass and ask people. Sorry, I guess that's my main point.
Amazing. That's beautifully put, Sam. Thank you for sharing. I totally agree. I do think it can be like a gorgeous symbiotic relationship between mentor and mentee. Ghislaine, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add something very quick, like intergenerational collaboration and diversity is one of the key I love to do. Usually in my art practice, and also be in the studio and being an educator, sharing the same space with different people is a learning process, and you need each other to grow. So being open to be diversity, and also having an intergenerational conversation, you can learn to each other, wisdom, knowledge, creativity. And this is the way I think this is one of the key you can build a community and also be good in your art practice and everyday basis.
That's great. Yeah, it's a great practice for the art studio as well as like in real life too, this intergenerational working collaboration. Awesome. So, I want to move on to the next question, which is very related, which is what role do teachers or young teachers specifically play in addressing these types of challenges, some of the challenges that we've, mentioned, whether it's, kind of going against the grain, being a trailblazer, not having the bridge being fully built yet. And then we're also thinking about, strategies for fostering meaningful relationships and building these bridges, such as, icebreakers, structured conversations, community building, and things like that. So does anyone have any thoughts about what role teachers play in these institutions to address these types of challenges? Sally.
I know I was very challenged. Lloyd had me start teaching when I was 15. And so I was teaching adults. And so that generation gap, I mean, I even had one guy say, I'm not listening to you. You're just a kid, and you have to kind of roll with things, and then, I'm still teaching when I'm the same age as those adults. And now I'm teaching and I feel like these are my grandkids, and you change how you are depending on your age, I think, between your students. And it's interesting for me to look back and look at that. I don't know, just very different.
I love that. Amy.
So I don't have quite as much experience as Sally does, but I'm getting on there with a couple decades, and sometimes it's hard for me to bridge the gap with the very new students. And so one of the things that that's helpful for me is to work with a team teacher, either like a teaching assistant or another teacher who brings a different perspective. And I like that person to be complementary. So not somebody who has the same skill set as me, but somebody who has a completely different skill set or comes from a different background or is a different, age or something like that. So that the students see us bridging the gap, me and the teacher, and then that can be scaled to us teaching the students and the students teaching us.
I love that. Gabriella.
Sorry. Thanks. Yeah, it's actually kind of like what Amy was saying, but not entirely the same, like from the point of view of a student, and also kind of what Joe was saying, like sometimes teachers or people in general in the community are kind of like gatekeepy about certain things. Like even if they're teaching you, they might not want to teach you like their signature thing, which is fine, I get it. But at the end of the day, like the teachers that are the most open and, open to teaching, but also open to like letting you, excuse my language, like fuck around and find out, like let you do your thing and like mess up and experiment, like you've been saying. I think that plays a huge role. Like no matter how technical you are, no matter how much experience you have, if you can't connect and if you can't make someone feel excited or like not get discouraged, which happens often, I feel like, and that might potentially be a like older man to younger woman dynamic as well, right? Where you're talked down to a lot. But I think that no matter what, like if you're excited about it and they're excited about it, then there's going to be that bridge created, like my first glass class that I ever took was actually a fusing class, and it was a 4-hour class. The teacher got an entire hour into the class and she was like, all right, y'all, like go ahead and cut all your glass, go for it. And we were like, but you didn't teach us how to cut the glass. Like she was so excited and taught us so much about all these things about glass. And I was engulfed, so loving it. But she didn't teach us how to cut the glass or how to use running pliers or anything. And so she was like, oh, wait, yeah, let me do that real quick. And so then the class went on. But like, people that weren't that excited about glass or that like were just there to try it were like, me, I'm like, oh, talk more about it. Like, I don't care. I went back and took another class so that I could cut the second time because the first time she was too excited. And like, I think that is going to go way further, in my opinion, than being able to teach someone super technically, like if you can't connect with them. So I always really, and like you were saying, Amy, about having people who have complementary or different, strengths, I think it's really important to be able to learn from different people. And so like Sam was saying, like being able to just reach out to someone and be like, hey, can I learn from you? Like that's the only reason. The only reason I'm in flame working is because I kept showing up to this warehouse and bothering these people while they were working on stuff. And they were like, can you give us a couple of months so that we can finish this commission? And I was like, okay, but I kept showing up, you know? And there's another person who I'm like, hey, can I come to your garage, please? So you can show me how to do it in Calmo? I can't do one yet, but like, I just want to, you know, mess around and find out. And so people that are open to that versus someone being like, no, come back to me when you can make a pipe or whatever. Like, no, you know, like if you want to come mess around, like that's fine. If you want to come observe, even though you don't know what you're doing, that's fine. And so anyway, yeah, just openness in general. I love it.
Totally. Thanks, Gabriella. Ghislaine.
Yes, I'm going to add on what Gabrielle just said. Like, it's very important also having a young teacher in the classroom. It could be very inspiring for the student to see like, okay, he's almost my age. And also sometimes you have like a better connection with the young student with the same age. It can help, not all the time, but you know, and be able to focus on the goal of the student, like with diversity, community, and understanding the need, and you know, just be present, having another dialogue and conversation. As Amy said at the beginning, like having two teachers with different background is a key for a successful class and improvement for the student. So if of the teacher can combine the background and the knowledge, is become more powerful for the classroom and for a better result at the end of the semester of the year.
Absolutely. Thank you. Amy.
I just wanted to add something to what Gabriella was saying. As a teacher, I never want to hold back information because you never know what people are capable of. And if you are withholding information, you're putting limits on what the student is capable of and judging them out of the gate before you even know them. And that's not fair. So I think it's always the right move to share the information and encourage students to come back again and again and again, because maybe they're not ready to do the difficult move yet. But when they see you do it again and again and again, they'll build that knowledge and eventually try it. Or some people try it out of the gate and they're just great glass blowers. You have to be willing to accept all the possibilities.
So true. I think that makes a good teacher. Sally.
Well, I think Beth Hyland is on this call, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes Beth and I teach together, and I really like teaching with Beth because she is so different from me.
Yeah.
She has, you know, when Beth gives a history lecture on glass, every word is thought out, and I don't even write things down before I give a lecture. But we really come from different perspectives, and I think I really appreciate that, Beth. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you very much. And it is good that we have different perspectives when we're working with a group. And I don't know where I was going with that, but anyway.
As a student who's taken a class with both of you, I loved it. And I agree. It was like a perfect example of the two different perspectives with teachers. So thanks, Sally. Thanks, Beth. Joe.
Yeah, this is like this. I find this discussion interesting because you're talking about like this spectrum between like a student and a teacher, and like there's this gray area in between sometimes too. And like I find myself increasingly in that area where I'm kind of both and neither. Like I've gotten to a point in a lot of the areas where I've become interested in that I can't really find someone who's doing the thing that I can actually learn well from. And I haven't refined it enough because it's kind of a new thing that like people feel like I have anything to offer as like a teacher either. And I mean, I am way open to sharing all of my information, but nobody, like, it's very rare that I have anybody that listens. And some of that I think is structural, because there seems to be some kind of hierarchical authority about who gets to be a teacher. And like, I have some personal issues with having that, like having my qualifications of being a teacher questioned. And I don't know, it's hard for me not to think about the student teacher kind of relationship and structure as not also being a part of this established hierarchy that is designed to like perpetuate itself. And I'm not sure where exactly to go from there, because yeah, like I agree with everything that's being said about like best teaching practices, but I've had teachers who didn't do that. Like I've had teachers that actively did not, like went against all of those things. And those are the same teachers that I think want to dictate who gets to teach. And like for a student, it's hard to find teachers that aren't promoted, right? Like it's part of that structural thing too, where you have an establishment of some sort that recognizes, oh, this person is recognized. This person is recognized in good, and all of that stuff. And if you're not kind of anointed or recognized, even if you want to teach, like there's very little way that somebody who might be interested is going to find you.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. I mean, I think that's true. Like, right. Unfortunately, not all teachers are good teachers, like Amy said. And if I find like if the institution is set up for that hierarchy, it's really hard to break through. And maybe looking at some of the additional relationships for learning, like skill sharing, collaboration, maybe it's like an institutional issue. Ghislaine.
Yeah, I'm going to add one thing like about passing the torch. As an art instructor and a teacher, you have to recognize the skill of each of your students, no matter the level of skills, but be able to give your best. Hiding, like I hear like somebody say, some teacher hide their skills, doesn't want to share everything. For me, is wrong, because you always want success for your student. You want them to be better than you. This is why you're teaching, I guess. And also, if you love what you're doing, is a love of passing the torch, passing the knowledge, and they're going to do it different. Like having the fear, like, oh, somebody's going to copy me or somebody's going to take over, I think is a wrong mindset as an artist and a teacher. So what is your vision? What are you willing to give, and what do you see about just being in your classroom? Are you looking for a paycheck, or you want a successful student to be able to make a living with their art piece? And so I feel like everybody have an agenda, and it's sad to say like not everybody is good teacher, but how you can make a difference is very important. And from that, just passing the torch and building the bridge and making like empowering, like be able to help the next generation to do better than you.
Absolutely.
I think it's one of the keys.
It's such a beautiful, generous way to approach teaching. And I think that's what makes a really great teacher. And I definitely have seen teachers or, like seen the struggle of like, I don't want to teach this technique because what if my students copy me, right? But often students will copy, as an exercise, you copy the master and then you go on and you make it your own thing. and trusting, like you said, like that they will make their own thing. They will make it their own. They're not going to just copy everything about you, hopefully most of the time. So setting aside your ego, like Amy typed in the chat, it's so important, so you don't get tangled up in that. Gabriella.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to add on to what Ghislaine said, because it's like I was literally, I had typed it out and then I, erased it. But I had started to say, like, you have to, teachers need to be okay with the fact that students could be better than them or could surpass them. But Ghislaine is taking it further and saying, like, you want them all to be better than you, which is so, like, that's such a beautiful and heartfelt way to approach teaching. I feel like that's very, like, almost parent-like, that's like, I'm not a person who wants kids, but I do want to be able to at some point teach people and be able to have, you know what I mean? Like, it's a very, like, loving gesture. And so I do agree that, like you said, there are people that don't want to teach their certain techniques or their signature items. But I think that those people, and sometimes, like you said, these are the same people that want to, like, dictate who gets to teach or dictate this hierarchy. And these are the people that end up cannibalizing glass, right? Like, they're doing it so that they can avoid having competition. But, like, in no way is this meant to be offensive. It's just the truth. Like, you're going to get old. You're not going to be able to make glass anymore. And if you didn't teach someone else how to do it, then that died with you, and, like, that's way worse than not passing it on. And so, like, I would rather be able to say that, like, okay, we passed it on. And again, the people, if you do have a student that goes ahead and copies everything you've done and it's completely derivative, then, like, unfortunately, they're not really a glass artist. And that's maybe not the nicest thing to say either. But, like, if you're just going to copy things, like, okay, that's fine. And to be fair, at the beginning, like you said, you have to do repetition. Of course, I'm going to sit here and make chain links. I didn't invent chain links, but I need to sit here and try it. But if one day I decide to make them unique, then that's my own thing, right? Either way, it's just really cool to be able to see that, okay, there might not be great teachers, but there are also amazing teachers that do want you to be able to do better. And that, I think, is the point. And I love that was your expectation, because at first I was just thinking, like, just be okay with someone maybe being better than you, because most people are not okay with that. They're literally not. And they don't want to teach you something for you to get good. So the people that do, like, that's the people that you want to follow. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. So beautifully said. Thank you. Sally.
Well, as a 67-year-old, your students are going to be better than you. And that is a really positive thing. And so it's good that you're all into that. I also, I'm thinking of the Blashkas, how they pass things down, how the son copied the father, how certain things were directly copied. Certain things I do I've directly copied from Lloyd, and he's proud of that. So, it kind of, some of you that have been in my classes, I teach a bell, with a little ring seal in it. That's directly from Lloyd Moore. And, he trained me to do that. And now I'm training other people to do that. So I don't think copying is a totally bad thing.
Yeah. That when I was first starting out, one of my friends who was, I guess, my mentor hooked me up for the tour. She was like, you have to be selfish. Like, don't show anyone how you do anything. Like, keep it all to yourself. And, like, just hearing that made me kind of depressed. But I think, what we're talking about here is just like a whole attitude shift and, like, flipping the switch, which just opens you up to so much more, like, spiritually, community wise. And, like, even like Gabriella said, like, if you keep it to yourself, you die. It dies with you. Whereas, like what you said, Sally, like you taught us the bell. I made the bell in your class. And then I'm pretty sure I took a class with David Willis a while before. And he was like, I'm going to show you guys how Sally taught me how to make a bell. And so we learned that too. And I was like, okay, it's like, I was like your grandchild through that demo. And, like, it's still like, everyone's still gonna be like, well, this is how Sally taught me. This is how, if I show something that I learned from someone else, I'll be like, well, this is what, so-and-so taught me. So it's just beautiful. It's like you're kind of living through by proxy through other people. I think Sam was next.
Yeah, just to kind of add to it, this idea of kind of learning by copying. Like, I did a lot of printmaking in my undergraduate studies, and, like, that's how we learned about how the original printmaking process was. You copied the person that the company was the lead of the company's images, and you copied them until that person died, and then now you could evolve a little bit as as they were then gone, but it was this copying motion. But I wonder where this where Sally mentioned kind of using things that were from Lloyd's reference. It's like a copying versus reference. And then there's the evolution of it that Gabriella mentioned, where then the evolution comes in, where you take the things and then you do something different with it. And I wonder where that, because like these things are kind of big to then just weave into some of these smaller introductory kind of avenues that people are getting into this, is like, how do we kind of express these things or imbue these lessons throughout this lesson of glass? Because there's this notion of copying that infringes on that intellectual property that I saw that Amy had written something about, where intellectual property is something I think that's worth observing. And as an artist, I strive to be original, but yet I live in a world of reference, and my work will be referential. So then where is that line of copy versus reference? Or where does the copy turn into an evolution? And as a teacher, how do we point these avenues out? How do we direct or encourage that notion of like where accepting the copying, but then accepting it as a building block, as an understanding kind of base to then grow out of or build on. So I leave you with that question, I guess.
Great questions. Thanks, Sam. Ghislaine.
Yeah, I would like to add one thing also about the social media. Now, in the social media, you can copy, you can see people who are like making some of their glass blowing or flame working online. So you have to be mindful. You are now in the world of social media, and it's easy to learn from YouTube or Instagram. So the classroom could be anywhere. So just be open of these new tools and how you can use it for your own good. So basically, thank you for the social media, being here and helping us and be the new classroom. I can say YouTube is a new classroom, and most of the time it's free. And people are just try to help some new artists or even established artists can go through that and just learn and build a skill. So it's not bad, it's how you use the tool, basically.
Absolutely. I feel like that social media has exploded our resources for education and even just reference, which is amazing. It's a great time to be alive, kind of, for some reasons. But yeah, what to that point, and also to what Sam said, I was thinking, I'm kind of sometimes on the other end of it, where like I have a student who's like, they get turned off from the idea of even making something because they saw someone else do it before. Like, oh, I couldn't make a glass centipede, like so-and-so is like making them, and they do it so well. Or like, oh, I had this idea to make this thing, but then I saw someone else do it, and like, oh, I forget it. And they're like distraught. And I'm like, I tell them, everything's pretty much already been done. So like, especially as a student, do not let that deter you, because you're going to make it your own. You're going to make it yourself. Don't copy them, especially if you're like making something from reference. Like look at, research like actual centipedes or whatever the thing is. So you can, get a real reference, but like, rather than copying their thing for thing, but like just like some concept, you're going to approach it totally differently. Or if you do, use someone as whether it's a glass artist or a musician or a painter, use them as a reference, then sort of, credit them in the piece, in the statement, and homage to so-and-so, that way it's not really derivative. It's, you're giving credit where credit is due. Gabrielle, is there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify earlier what I was saying. Like, obviously, we all need to like reference and, like you said, copy things before, like, and learn them. And like you said just now, like, yeah, people see something and they're like, oh, I don't want to make it because someone made it. And I think that a lot. But at the same time, it's like I have been introduced to most flame working through social media. And I'm like, okay, let me see if I can try that little thing. Yes, many people sell this little flower shape with a hole in it that you can put an earring through, or it can be a pendant, or it can be a joint holder. And I'm not going to go to jail for making a shape that exists everywhere that is a very trendy little shape that I'm not marketing this. I'm just learning, it's okay. And you need to not crucify yourself. Cause I am very afraid, especially as someone who has never studied art formally or art history or anything, it feels like when you haven't gotten to study it, that you're just copying, even though yes, I'm a student of art in my brain, right? But not in a school. And so it feels like when you're referencing something, you might just be copying it, but really it's no, I'm studying it, I'm learning it. And so it's hard to make that differentiation sometimes, but it is really helpful to even have that said. So thank you. Yeah.
I think there's a huge line between copying something for learning and then copying something for marketing, right? And for selling and appropriation in that sense. Awesome. Well, great. I mean, we have sort of one last thing to touch on, which we've already started, which I'll just sort of reintroduce before I pass it back to Amy. And Ghislaine, I'd love to, posit this question towards you or anyone else who would like to answer, which is just, we're thinking of strategies for fostering these meaningful relationships, which, we started talking about, but structured conversations, community building. Do we have any other thoughts about that as far as the building of bridges in our community? Amy. Oh, you're muted.
One thing I think has been pretty successful in some of my class situations has been encouraging folks to work in pairs or small groups in class, and then also outside of class when it's independent work time, to have a torch buddy or to have a studio buddy. And that's for safety's sake. But also what happens is, there's someone who's always going to the studio with you, and you eventually develop a relationship and bridge the gap that way. And, it's just been really beautiful to watch some of these buddies that, started out as kind of like a buddy system safety thing for being in the studio but alone after hours, turn into these really long-term friendships that are very supportive with people who are from totally different walks of life. And there's skill sharing involved and intergenerational wisdom involved. And that's just been a very beautiful thing. So I think anytime there's an option to work in groups or have a partner in a class, that there's an opportunity there to really build a relationship and build a bridge.
I love that. When you tell them to have torch buddies, do you assign them or do they self-select?
No, I don't assign, but I will encourage as a group, try to do it without singling anybody out. If there's somebody who's very shy or, just to make sure that nobody gets stuck with somebody that they really dislike, even though that can turn into a great situation as well. But so just making sure everybody feels comfortable and kind of assisting folks who feel a little shy with introducing themselves in a new situation. But that's pretty much all the facilitation I like to do. And then people naturally find people to, build relationships with.
Yeah, I love it. Ghislaine, did you have something you want to add?
Yes, I would say also community building, communication building is one of the key. Artifact, artwork exchange is one of the key. Skills exchange also, skills, art exchange. If you cannot afford to buy anything for your coworker, for your friend, exchange work is helping them to build a collection. You build your collection, you never know in the future. Exchanging tools also could be one of the key for a building collection. So any tool you have and anything you don't use anymore or you want to improve, you can do an exchange. So yeah, all these different key components help to build a bridge and just improve your classroom and the way you teach. I always say like doing something conventional is fine, but try to make it very unique and set up with the need of your student.
I love that. Thanks. I should start exchanging tools with people. That's a great idea. I have a lot of duplicates. Yeah, let's do a trade. Sam.
Yeah, just kind of another take on that, on the strategizing of it. Like the way I think about it with students when I'm trying to like really make sure that they feel safe in the space, especially if it's like a first time class or just navigating this as an early beginner. There's really no, and even intermediate, all makers really, but no wrong answers, just variable results. So kind of taking that on in my responses when they're asking questions about technique is, I found early on I was more apt to say, oh, no, that's not how you do it. This is how you do it. But it's just the way that I happen to do it, where now I'm trying to like observe that, no, okay, no is not the answer here. So this is what would happen if you, this is my understanding of what would happen if you pursued this variable of technique. This is what I've done to get the results that I feel you're seeking, and trying to kind of treat every hurdle with curiosity to make space, to make it like a safe space for landing when they feel like they're in the air. That I felt has built like a longer lasting student, somebody who wants to come back and take another class to navigate that unknown. Because it's scary sometimes, especially with like flame working and where you have that live fire with glass. I've noticed the reserve, but then to really like amplify that safety and the wording, I've found those relations definitely feel stronger with that student.
Thanks, Sam. Joe.
When I think about this, I think like my take on it is a little different in terms of, it's not like I see all these efforts about inviting people in and making them feel comfortable. And I mean, that's great. I'm not going to argue against that. What I want to, I guess, advocate for is people who are already in the community and in like the structures and whatnot. Why don't you go outside and play with people? Like, you have like, it's intimidating and also a little stifling, I think, when you're saying, oh, you're welcome to come to us and do what we want and how we want to present it to you. But I think a lot of people could benefit from going out and being like, hey, this is what I have to offer. Let's do something. Let's show, like, here, I'm going to show you some stuff. Tell me what you think. And like, let's play around. And instead of being like, hey, come to us and we'll teach you the thing, go to people and go outside. You know, like the whole idea of insider versus outsider. There's a big insider kind of faction in glass. And that's, well, intimidating. And it's also, I think, limiting in what gets explored. So like, I want to encourage people to go outside and play. Like, don't concentrate on trying to invite people in. Go yourself, take yourself outside and see what else is out there, instead of kind of staying inside like whatever walled metaphor, like ivory tower, or whatever you want to call it. I think that's what I'm trying to advocate when I look at some of these spaces. It's like, yeah, like inclusion and getting people in to participate, that's great. But there's also this other thing that you can be doing. And it's a lot less intimidating when you're going out and basically being open and offering, instead of saying, come to me and like, we'll do something.
Yeah, great point, Joe. It's easy to have the status quo when you're in your ivory tower institution, you're on the insider, but like actually getting out of your comfort zone to the community is a totally different move. Sam.
Just a little response to that, because that tickled my brain and it started fluttering with little ideas from what you said, Joe. and this idea of like insider versus like this idea of welcoming to instead of going forth to like get it out to people. I wonder if that becomes more of like a more complex issue aside from just teaching. Because as an instructor or as somebody that wants to share, period, I feel like things like the internet have really opened those doors. But when we look at like the actual physical act of glasswork, there's like safety and infrastructure that are required. And there's only so many people that have access to provide that in a way that they can share it with others. And so I wonder if the internet is not doing it enough, what's the way that we can get that out, the way that we can bridge that gap? Because the ability to go out, really, I think the last big leap in that was like people posting on YouTube and having bits on TikTok and Instagram being more accessible, so you don't have to physically go anywhere. It can be found on your device. But maybe there's barriers where you don't need as much of that physical stuff to get these ideas to people. Maybe it's just showing up at events, trying to curate an event or a meetup or something, maybe that doesn't require active flames. I don't know. I'd love to hear other ideas too on like how this might be bridged outside of just like YouTube videos and institutions.
Thanks, Sam. Sally.
Okay, this might be a little old school, but what Lloyd and I would do is we would go set up our torches outside anywhere. And, the community would just come. And sometimes it would be a little scary, but, it was a good thing to do, I think. I remember one time we went and set up outside of a slaughterhouse. And then I became a vegetarian instantly. But any like craft show or going to the library, the local libraries, and setting up outside. And we had a great time. Being in Nebraska in the 70s was very racial, and we would go out in the little podunk towns, and there were places where they had never seen a person of color. And so they were very curious about Lloyd. And one thing Lloyd would do is he would make a joke out of it. And, we would be outside in the sun blowing glass with our torches with the wind, and then we'd put our arms together and he'd say, now who's getting a better tan, and get the whole, place laughing and, stuff like that. But, just setting up places, go to your local schools and, see if you can safely set up outside somewhere and show the kids, what you're doing. This is before TikTok and social media, that's what we did. And I think it was very positive.
Thanks, Sally. Ghislaine.
Yeah, I will add on what Sally just said, like being very open on any non-conventional place outside of the studio space setting or the art gallery setting. It could be any pop-up shop on the street. Like you have to reinvent the game, as I always said, or reinvent the way people are seeing where you have to have an exhibition or where you have to teach. Make something new and be bold, just being bold and try to define what is best for your community, what is best for you, and having a conversation and make it happen. You're always going to find some help. No matter what, somebody's going to agree about your beautiful or amazing idea on your way to change the way you are teaching or the way you want to do your exhibition for the community or for a group of artists.
Thanks, Ghislaine. Beth.
So going back to what Sally was talking about, and also Ghislaine, our local arts council has grants for artists, and they aren't big, but they have lots of them, and they love this kind of thing, to bring things to students in schools, to bring things to all kinds of venues. And Joe, that's a great way to begin teaching and get your name known for teaching. To be able to get those grants, that gives you the opportunity to get out there, and it's a lot of fun.
I mean, if I could respond to that, first of all, I was being a little more metaphorical than like physical about actually going outside. I think a lot of what I meant to say is that you have an establishment that is struggling with inclusion and diversity and wanting to get more people inside. And personally, from my point of view, I'm not looking to go inside. Like, I've been there and I think it's a little stuffy and I don't necessarily like it in there. And the way things are is right now, if you're not inside, you don't get to do anything. At least from my point of view. So what I'm saying is, if people want to find some new like techniques, new ideas, new people doing different things, you got to come out from what your establishment is. And I mean, I do want to teach, and I mean, I have an MFA. I have the credential that says I should be able to teach. I'm just not interested in teaching in some of those venues because I don't really get to teach. Like, some of the ideas I have and some of the things that I've done are not very popular with some people. Like my thesis was incorporating 3D printing into like craft medium, and I think that was a lot of what turned off a lot of my like certain key members of my committee. So yeah, like what I'm like, I understand like how to get started. I know I've been in the places, and I've gone through the experience of, oh, this is how you get to teach, and this is how you get to have a reputation. This is how you go and spread the word or the knowledge. But what I'm talking about is it's still within that kind of structure. And I'm really not interested in that structure. And because I'm not interested in the structure doesn't seem to be interested in me either. So I'm outside. Come out and play with me. That's kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. I think we're gonna wrap up here in a few minutes. So we'll finish up with Sam, Ghislaine, and then Sally, and then I'll just pass it back to Amy. Does that sound good? Awesome. Go ahead, Sam.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I resonate with that feeling of being outsider and looking at these big institutions. I've been a pipe maker my whole career, and it wasn't until a few years ago that I made the leap into MFA world and greater glass community, opportunity, navigation, hurdles, all the things at large. And that was a big decision that I remember making before I applied to grad school. Was I have been noticing that I'm somebody who wants this extra thing. I'm this person that seems interested in both sides of this glass coin, as I was defining it from being on the pipe side of my imagined coin. And it wasn't until realizing, hey, I could be that gap for somebody. I don't see this person out there yet. I know they're out there. There's got to be somebody, but I don't know who they are or where they are or how to find them, even with access to the internet. And so I decided to try and be a bridge. And that journey, I don't know if I've accomplished it yet, but I think it is important to observe when we're, or at least for me, it was important to observe that when I saw something that was missing, maybe I'm that thing that can be missing, that is missing now, that I can fill that gap. So I wonder if that tension coming from whatever it is in the or not whatever, but that tension of institution versus feeling welcomed and feeling natural there. If you're the person that can change that for your community, or if it's a matter of seeking out where you can be bold, because there's a lot of places that want to put down that boldness, but I think it's so important as an artist, as an instructor, to stay bold, to stay true to your guns. So I think there's something on the horizon for you, Joe.
Amazing. Ghislaine?
Yeah, I just want to say regarding Joe respond. I just feel like sometimes when you're not like ready to teach or you don't trust the institution, is to find a safe place. How you can make a safe place, even inside the institution while you are working, how you can make it better and safe for everybody. It could be more diverse, inclusion, all these like component to make it welcoming. You can create it inside the institution, and you can do that also outside the institution. So you cannot do it by yourself. Sometimes you need the community. That's why you always say like building a bridge, having the connection, having the partnership is one of the key, because sometimes your voice is not enough. You need many voices to make the difference. And one of the key as an instructor or teacher is to teach in a safe place for you and for your student. So there is always a conversation, no matter what. You can make it happen. If you don't feel like it's not safe enough for you, address the issue and it will happen, even if you're not in with the conversation anymore. But sooner or later, it will happen, because like you're passing the torch. You have a community who is with you, and also you put the voice on some issue nobody couldn't address. And it's very important to have a safe conversation and safe place to be able to do your job and do your art practice in general.
Yeah. Thanks, Ghislaine. Wow. This has been such an amazing discussion. Honestly, before I pass it back to Amy, I just want to say it's been a small group, but this has been one of the most interesting discussions that I've had in a long time. So I want to thank all of you for sharing your thoughts, and huge thank you to Ghislaine for sharing your perspective and your very generous, like beautiful thoughts with us, and super appreciate it. So, before we wrap up, I want to, if there's any questions or thoughts anyone has for Ghislaine that they want to ask, or Ghislaine, if there's anything you would like to end on, or anything else anyone would like to share, we'll take a few minutes for that, and then I'll go ahead and pass it back to Amy. Thanks, guys.
All right. Ghislaine, would you like to have the last word? I guess you kind of did, but do you have any advice, parting thoughts you'd like to leave us with at all? Not to put the pressure on you, but.
So I just want to say to everybody who's here tonight and just sharing the space, thank you for being so open and be true to yourself and having this safe and good communication. And one of the key things of building a bridge, building a community, is removing the fear. And don't auto-sabotage yourself. Always feel like your voice is important and somebody will hear your voice. No matter what, is going to be heard. And also, you cannot work by yourself. You need a community. So don't be afraid to ask for help for any collaboration. It's the only way you can grow as a human being and as a art professional. But thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks. Oh, we got a Gabriella real quick. Oh no, thank you, Ghislaine. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. I feel like I learned so much, and it's been an honor to have you joining us tonight. So thank you. And thank you all for coming. This has been a great discussion. I feel like we heard from almost everybody, which is, that doesn't always happen. So thank you all so much for being generous in your input and also generous in your listening. I really appreciate you all. And so that's going to be it for tonight. I hope to see you all in the spring for our next session, which will be sometime mid-spring, and we'll let you know about that. There is a link in the chat to survey. If anybody would like to give some feedback immediately, that will help us plan our next season and also our next session. We would welcome that. And thank you all so much. I hope you have a great night.
Thank you. So great to see you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Merci,
Bye-bye.
Ghislaine.
Bye. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Emily from GEEX, aka the Glass Education Exchange. GEEX is an online platform connecting people and sharing materials in the collective field of glass education. That's a bit of a mouthful. So what does it actually mean? GEEX creates supportive spaces outside of traditional academic structures to offer community-building programming and resources. Programs like the Flame Affinity Group offer a space for constructive dialogue between practitioners in the field. We're hoping to nudge the field of glass into its next generation through new models of community support. This recording is also available through one of our initiatives, the Glass Resource Exchange. The Glass Resource Exchange is a user-contributed library collecting and sharing educational material like articles, supply lists, videos, and more. We're hoping to see it grow as a common resource supporting glass teaching and learning. Want to support GEEX? Small donations really help us continue building our communal programming. Alternatively, you can subscribe to our lecture series featuring outstanding glass artists and researchers. Learn more at geeks.glass/support. Thanks for watching. Want updates on new GEEX programs and resources? Follow @GeeksGlass on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, or visit our website, geeks.glass. Thanks again, and stay tuned.